Welcome to Pop Monster, a podcast to feed all your pop culture cravings. My name is Sarah, a self-confessed superfan. This show will cover everything from reality TV chaos, nostalgic deep dives, and the latest in music, TV, movies, and books. So let's get into it. Now, we have week 2 of MAFS Australia to discuss, but first I want to say something about the devastating news we've heard this week about the passing of Mel Schilling. This is just so heartbreaking, and I've always considered Mel the matriarch and the heart of MAFS. This is just such a shocking loss, and all I can really say now is rest in peace, Mel. You're an absolute queen, and my thoughts and condolences are with all her family and friends. So this week, I have truly immersed myself fully into the MAFS Australia bubble. I have been diligently watching the season and have even started season 4, which I've never seen before. I'm so glad that I have this show to be hyper-fixated with, as I need to stop buying things, and this show just pushes that serotonin button in my brain. I've really been trying recently to cut back on buying things, but my patience has been tested by the shop typo. I walk in there, and at 33, potentially looking like a mother of the other youth clientele, and I just lose my fucking mind. There's something being pumped out of the fence in there. You just black out and later find that you've purchased a Shrek cereal bowl. I own a Scooby-Doo cookie jar that I purchased from there that I'm starting to think is for dog treats. Now, I have no pets and I just fill it with wafer snacks for when I'm hungry. But, if you haven't been, Typo is just a paradise filled with shit you really don't need, but they make nice trinkets that look good in my library. And yes, like Scott in this week's MAFS, I don't want kids, so we have a spare room that I've turned into a mini library. This has been a childhood dream of mine ever since Beauty and the Beast, and I felt like I could finally make a small, modest library after many years of being embarrassingly cheap. So, enough about me. I'm so ready to get into this, and I'm overjoyed that we're getting past the wedding stage and entering our first ever Revelations week. I've got next to me my favourite sparkly white grape flavoured water. Let's break down week 2 of MAFS Australia. So with this week, I think it'll work best by me going episode by episode. So let's go back to the beginning, Monday's episode, giving us the final 2 weddings. I'm happy to be putting the wedding section to bed, but I've been getting sucked in. I'm concerned that I'm too optimistic, and I'm starting to think that too many of these couples are going to work out. And I'm being generous here with my calculations, but less than 10% of these couples work out based on the average season. So first up, we've got Stella and Philip. So Stella is 32, a beauty technician, and we see her riding on a motorcycle. So a little background on Stella is that she's from Lithuania and moved here on her own to create better opportunities for herself and her future family. I mean, this is an incredibly ballsy thing to do, and Stella is coming across, I must say, very tough despite her non-stop crying. She even refers to herself as an emotional gangster. Now, because Stella's family aren't in Australia and can't attend the wedding, she has some friends who will step up into this role for her big day. Now, these friends are real motley crew, but I'll get to them in a second. The groom that Stella will be marrying is Philip, who is 38 and is from a Croatian family. Now, he's another guy who is obsessed with his parents' marriage. At first, I had to double check the ages with these two because it seemed like there was a big age gap, and she does look a bit young. But no, 32, 38, not a huge age gap. Now, Philip is he's a real grifter. He's a man who wears many hats. We see him holding a bird at one point, and we see a snippet of his online personal development coaching for men. Now, in this video that we see, he is both oily and topless, and it's reminding me of Teresa Giudice's from Real Housewives of New Jersey's terrifying husband, Louis. So Louis goes into the woods for retreats with other men, where they all get topless, have breakdowns, and act fucking mental. I mean, I'm not saying that Philip is a future cult leader. Honestly, he lacks the charisma and doesn't have the hair for it. But his career path, it's a lot. We learn that he is an ex-party boy, and his new priority is his health and fitness and his sober lifestyle, which we'll come to a little bit later. So let's skip ahead to the ceremony. So we are greeted with some insane behavior from Stella's terrifying friend Layla. So we learn that Layla is a mama free and has taken on a mama bear role in Stella's life. So I think it was stuff like the way that Layla is treating Stella and Stella's weird older gentleman friend Joe. The way that these two talk about her is a bit infantilizing, and that is maybe why I wasn't thinking she was 32. But Layla is a nightmare. So when Philip first gets to the altar, she stops to ask him his star sign. Now, do we believe in star signs and astrology? I personally don't, and I think that's an act of self-preservation, as I'm a Gemini like Trump and Kanye, and I don't want any connection to them. So, yeah, ignorance is bliss. I don't want to be a Gemini right now. So, as a couple, I don't find these two the most dynamic to watch. They do seem very happy and attracted to each other. Her vows that she gives are really lovely, and she's pissing tears the whole time. She's just constantly crying. I think the most interesting thing about this wedding ceremony is it turning into a crowd Q&A where both sides are just yelling stuff out constantly. We do have some issues. So the first sign of real trouble is once we get to Philip's vows. Now, this man has quite the resume. He is a carpenter, like Jesus, and he also lists out his online self-help coaching, his YouTube channel, and how he hasn't missed a workout in 3 years. So when Philip starts talking about his career and his YouTube channel and his vows, that starts emergency sirens going off in Stella's older male friend, Joe. Her friends are too involved. They're way too involved. So Joe and his nose ring go to interrogate Philip's friends to find out a bit more about what his agenda is. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit skeeved out by Joe. It's a bit creepy how he keeps saying Stella's stunning and how he has to look out for her. Now, Stella is completely oblivious to this drama. These two, Philip and Stella, are on cloud nine completely. She makes him a bite out of the food that's on her plate. I mean, that couldn't be me. I'm a greedy food hog. See, this is why Philip could carry her down the aisle like a baby. This has never happened to me in my life. I've never been carried like a baby. I'm built differently. Now, I do feel bad for Philip at one point because they do this Lithuanian wedding tradition that involves drinking vodka. Now, Philip could have given a bit more of a diplomatic answer, but he's sober, so it's fair enough that he's not doing it. And everyone is absolutely outraged by him not taking this shot, including his own friends. And this made me a bit confused about his sobriety, because I thought of him as a sober person, but all of his talk is about him needing to be sober because his business model is teaching sobriety. To be fair, Stella is completely cool with this and just takes on board that he doesn't want to take that shot. However, it seems like there's been some issues in Stella's past with ignoring red flags, and Layla and Joe pull her aside to raise their concerns. So Layla doesn't stop here. She confronts Philip to check if he's there for the right reasons. Now, in this interaction, I found Layla to be a wee bit unhinged. She's just too much, and Philip stays relatively calm, but she keeps telling him to breathe and that he's getting agitated while like crazy Joe smiles like the Joker in the corner. I found these people suffocating, and to be honest, for both Stella and Philip and the next couple to get married, I find both of these couples pretty dull. So let's get to Julie and Grayson. Now, throughout this whole week, these two have been getting a bit of an invisible edit. I'm completely unspoiled and out of the loop for anything that's happened for this season outside of these episodes. And I could believe that this couple is so dull that there's nothing to show, but we see so little of them that like I'm starting my own conspiracies that one of them has murdered someone and they're trying to edit them out of the show. Like, where are they? I guess the main headline from this pairing and what the show keeps drumming is that in an experiment first, the bride has no idea if she'll be matched with a man or a woman. And we saw the hens and bucks nights. We knew Julia would be matched with a man. There was an even number of men and women. I was really hoping that it would be a woman, as we haven't seen two women matched in the Australian MAFS series since season 7, so it seemed like it should be time for that. Now, back to these two. They seem very nice and emotionally intelligent. Their families and friends seem sane too. My only highlight with these two is seeing Julia's fashion sense. She is power dressing in suits like Blake Lively in A Simple Favor. I want to make a slideshow of her outfits. They're stunning, and she does some great hat work. Now, Grayson's big in is that he's friends with Johnny and Kerry from season 8. I must say, this crew have been going with some crazy camera angles. At one stage, I thought Grayson had a tiny head and an insanely huge body like that guy in Umbrella Academy with the gorilla body. It was throwing me off. And their actual wedding day, it's amazing. They've cordoned off a section right outside of Sydney Opera House. I really don't have much to say about these two. I don't know if I can see it working out. She seems like she has like a higher energy to him. He seems a bit low energy. I mean, in his wedding speech, he talks so much about his mindset of abundance. I hate that. And his failed football career. And just move on, man. Maybe that's on me and I'm the unhealthy one. I like to stuff down my emotions until I get a stomach ulcer. But he's still going on about his failed childhood football career. Anyways, they both, I don't know how many times I can say, they seem very nice. He takes the revelation that Julia is bisexual very well, and there's no major drama with these two. Okay, I need to get on to the very first dinner party of the season. Although I have to say, I was getting pissed off. Like, this happens every year, but the sheer number of recaps throughout these episodes, I have not had a head injury. It was rare. I was there. I remember it all too well. So we first get a quick check-in with the couples. Some highlights out of this are learning that Gia and Scott have boned, and I'm genuinely impressed that they held out this long because these two have been all over each other. Another thing is, it seems like the producers have got to Beck and Danny, so they both clear the air and apologise, and they get ready together to put their best face forward for the dinner party. We get to see a bit of honeymoon content for Stella and Philip, so they are staying at Freycinet Lodge in Tasmania. So I continued to look at the prices of these places. So this place is around £189 a night. So doesn't seem like the producers care about them either. And this looked a bit miserable. We see them in a tiny outdoor tub, just squashed in together in the rain. They're wearing beanies, and she's tickling him with her feet. Need I say more? Now, after getting married at Sydney Opera House, Julia and Grayson remain production's darlings. They stay at Nehemiah Villas and Spa, which is £412 a night. And as I mentioned, these two don't seem to be getting a lot of attention on the show, and it looks like things have stalled for them. And that takes us to the dinner party. And may I say that the women are dressed fantastically. They all look really, really distinct. They all have their own style, and I thought they looked great, although that might just be the taste leaving my body. Gia has her hair crimped, and it reminds me so much of this totally hair Barbie doll I had with crimped hair. I had it growing up in the 90s, and yeah, I loved it. And as always, as we see every year, there's always this competition between the couples on who's going to look like the power couple and the best match. They're all kind of really gearing up for this, apart from Mel, who just can't even hide how much she hates Luke. But Gia and Scott are both hyper competitive. And something I find really interesting when you see these people enter the dinner party is getting a better sense of who these people glom onto as friends. I really wonder how long they spend together on the stag and hen nights, because when they're entering, these people are running to each other like when military families are reunited. Stephen, our boat doctor, is the only one who kept it real and felt ambushed and was like, who are you people? I'm the Stephen, and this experiment, it just isn't for introverts. So let's start with Beck and Danny. So I felt bad for her because she walked into the dinner party really nervous, and it must be hard to see all the couples all over each other and look at yourself and feel like what's lacking in your relationship. These two really heavily overcompensate and try to save face by acting like everything is perfect. There's a whole interaction between Beck and Rebecca where she says that she thinks Gia would be Danny's type. Now, Rebecca is kind of messy and asks Beck if she thinks that Gia is going to come for her husband. And I think one of the biggest fallacies in this show is assuming the older couples in the show are mature. Like, these people are a mess. So Beck later gets questioned on this chat with her producer, and she has a complete meltdown. It made me quite curious what percentage of the time they have cameras on them, because Beck seemed to have completely forgotten that she's mic'd up on camera and that the producers have got all of this footage. Now, I feel like the true pairing of the season is Beck and Gia. So I'm just going to talk about these two together because the men are pretty irrelevant at this point. So before the dinner party, these two are so laser focused on each other and their beef. Then as soon as they lay eyes on each other, they are both fake as fuck and are just all over each other. Like, Beck is tussling Gia's hair and smacking her arse, and they're just pretending that they actually like each other. Now, throughout this whole dinner party, Gia has been an absolute nightmare. Her and Scott want to be the winners of Married at First Sight. They want to be the first ever winners. And Scott, this sweet himbo, says, I feel like we bring the power couple vibes. And I think it does send Beck off the deep end to see Gia so happy in her match, especially because in this party, Gia is a bone collector. She comes in like an agent of chaos and doesn't like that everyone is getting along too well. She is like a heat-seeking missile, asking each couple in turn if they have had sex, and basically hounds Beck for an answer on this, when she dodges the question. I think the biggest point of contention between these two is the fact that Gia and Scott are constantly banging each other, and Beck and Danny's sexual chemistry was dead on arrival, and it's just setting Beck on the defensive. And she even says, darling, sometimes you have to know what's good for the whole isn't good for the soul, and she is a poet. So it kicks off between them when Beck says that sometimes the slow burners are the ones who last, and the ones who start so strong can eventually crumble. And this really pisses Gia off, and Beck starts to backtrack. And I agree with Gia here when she says that Beck is too chicken shit to come for her. Beck is very much a confessional gangster and always talking out of the side of her mouth, both literally and figuratively. I still haven't got to the bottom of her mouth situation. So Beck is really trying to present a united front, but Danny can't help but bring up the rough patch they had at the honeymoon, and absolutely everyone at that table has clocked their bullshit, and they're not buying what they're selling. Even Chris knows. At one point, Gia claims that Danny was looking at her. Now, it goes against my nature to defend a man, but I think he's just spaced out with lazy eyes. Things are just so cringy between Beck and Danny and Gia and Scott. And bravo to the producers on the seating chart, putting these two opposite each other. But this whole kind of section where they're discussing their honeymoons really reminds me of Bridesmaids, when Annie and Helen are going back and forth with the microphone, trying to one-up each other. And yeah, to be fair, I would be pretty pissed off if I heard that they got to go to Fiji. All right, I'll give a quick summary of my thoughts on some of the other couples before getting to the train wreck of Mel and Luke. So Rachel and Stephen. It's becoming clearer and clearer to me that Stephen has never watched this show. In this dinner party, he's just so out of his depth. And the whole time, he's just really reminding me of Simon, Joe Thomas's character from The In-Betweeners. So at one point, he mentions briefly that there was some hiccups on the honeymoon. And my sweet Little Mermaid Stephen, he doesn't realize these people are sharks and they will pounce on you once they smell blood in the water. He gets completely battered by the other couples on this, but I really appreciate that these two, Rachel and Stephen, they absolutely have each other's backs. Now, Alyssa and David, I really only have one thing to say about them, and she looks like a child ballerina during this dinner party. And I don't know if Grayson is stoned, but he is so fascinated by Alyssa's hairdo. Like, Julia has to explain hairspray to him, and I think he just wants to get more height and staying power for his terrible hairstyle. Then we've got Chris and Brooke. Now, I really thought he would cause a lot more shit at this party, but he's been a little bitch and sulking because she got body glitter on his $300 shirt. Now, I'm calling bullshit on that shirt costing that much, and I need to see the receipts because it looks like a whole lot of nothing. Alrighty, let's wrap this dinner party up with Mel and Luke. Watching these two is an exercise in torture. So they entered the dinner party separately, and this woman, she cannot wait to get away from him and talk to anyone else. He's quite awkward coming into the party, and I will say that Stella is very welcoming to him. And I don't know if I'm crazy, but I can see something between these two. So we kind of get to the root of Mel's ick when she talks to the ladies. So her physical type is very important for her, and she wants a surfer guy with opposite features to her. So like blonde hair, blue eyes. And throughout all of this, she's driving me up the wall. She just seems very, very spoiled. And she keeps talking about how she thought she'd be walking into her very own rom-com. And she'd be the princess and the main character. Like, woman, you're a black hole of charisma. You're not the main character. And at this dinner party, she has such little regard for Luke and is so cold towards him. She really lacks empathy. Like, even Gia feels bad for him and how he's being treated. I just can't make heads or tails of Mel. At one point, she asked if chicken is meat. And she's odd. Like, this was making me start to believe in lizard people. And that Mel has been sent down from the lizard people planet to corrupt this experiment. She is really on one throughout this party. And it's really like she doesn't seem to think of him as a person. She turns her body fully away from him. And when she's grilled on what her biggest gripes are with him, she has an issue with him listening to the TV too loudly. And I stand with Luke here. I receive on my phone every single day a daily alert from Apple telling me to turn my headphones down because I'm going to go deaf. And I ignore that alert. So you listen to that TV, Luke. And poor Luke, he looks like a kicked puppy. He's just at a loss on how he can connect with Mel. He's really just trying to be her friend, and she won't give him an inch, and he's losing the motivation to try. I feel like this must be so exhausting and degrading for him. I really feel like he's going to quit unless she can kind of step up and act like a decent human being. I really don't see how this relationship could improve. Let's move on to the couples moving in together and our very first Revelations week. So, my perspective from looking at these apartments is that these people should be happier. It looks like there's a Taco Bell in the building. What more could you want? I'd be eating non-stop chalupas and cheese sauce. So, in terms of the move-in process, Alyssa and David, the mess of their apartment is breaking me out in hives. Like, I can't be like this when it's such close quarters and such like a studio apartment. It's too much. The only other notable thing with the move-ins is the mess that is Mel and Luke. Now, this is a broken man. This man has been to war. He has aged 10 years and 10 days. It's reminding me of, have you ever seen those pictures they share of people before and after they became prime minister or president and what the stress of the job has done to them? That's what's happened to Luke here. This man just wants to disappear, and he is basically wearing the exact outfit that Steve Rogers wears when he's going undercover in Captain America Winter Soldier, including the blue cap. Now, these apartments, there is zero privacy. You open the door and you're straight on the bed, and it's very open plan. Something I forgot about Mel is her career and that she is a communication specialist. Now, I find this laughable to me after seeing her display her communication skills. And for all these scenes, I sometimes have to hide behind a pillow. The editors have even created their own score for these two. It's brutal. The music they play for them sounds like... Do you remember when they performed Smooth Criminal on Glee and they had dueling violins? That's what it sounds like. It's just two dueling violins. Basically, we're at a standstill with these two, and she doesn't want to try harder or put more effort in. We get to see a bit of her pre-match interview with John, where she says she wants a Bradley Cooper lookalike. And in this video, she also looks 10 years younger. This experience has drained the life out of this woman. This isn't healthy for either of them. So with our first ever Revelations week, there's a few different tasks that they've set up for the couples. So the first one is complete that phrase game called Rapid Revelations. The second one is the usual photo ranking challenge. And the third is them watching each other's audition tapes. But now they're making them watch them separately and then regroup with each other afterwards so that they can focus on them. Now, I must say a big thank you to David for his Bible study. He tells us that Revelations is the scariest word and the last book in the Bible where it's the end of the world. Now, personally, I've never made it all the way to the end of the Bible. But, let's save my religious trauma for another episode. Where should we start? All right, let's start with my two cuties, Rachel and Stephen. So we watched them do the audition tape task. First, he watches her video, and she's really rough on herself. She's very harsh about her appearance, and she talks about how in her past situationships, they made her feel like something is wrong with her, and she worries that thing is her looks. And similarly, when she watches his video, he mentions having similar issues and that he's a bit sour because he got no attention when he was bigger, and he basically had to work his butt off and starve himself and turn himself into something that he really didn't believe mattered. It was really hard to watch. When they both come together to discuss it, they're very emotional about these videos. This whole task with them made me cry, and I adore them both so much, and they really build each other up. And like, she says he's amazing just the way he is, and he says he thinks she's beautiful. Regardless of whether it works out, I hope they can stay friends and just be there to boost each other's confidence. Next up, we have Alyssa and David. I don't have much to say about these two. They breeze through the tasks, rank each other number one for attractiveness. These two are my number one couple in terms of who I think are actually going to work out. Okay, so we need to get to the horror film of Mel and Luke. So they also get the photo ranking task. Every year when I watch this task, does it remind anyone else of that show, Your Face or Mine, that used to be on T4, where people ranked their partner against other people? I was watching a compilation of it on YouTube, and yeah, it was horrific. If you were also a teen in the 2000s, congratulations to you for getting through all the trauma they threw at us and making it to the other side, dear God. So in this photo ranking challenge, Luke ranks Mel first. And when it's Mel's turn, she ranks Grace on top, but she does put Luke a very close second. And to be fair, she does try to soften the blow by saying he looks like a Greek god. But this absolutely devastates Luke. I really hope they give this man some good therapy and aftercare after this show. I'm genuinely worried for him. Something weird when Mel was drinking the grooms was how she seems to think that every man with dark hair and eyes looks related to her. Although it is always comforting to hear that she finds the men who look like her family members off-putting. We get to learn a little bit more about Mel in the Rapid Revelations task. So she talks about what she calls the best time of her life, when she and her friends would drive past their exes' houses multiple times in the night. The only time I am in a car late at night is to go to the drive-thru. Like, this is insane behavior. This is all too much for Luke. He just completely breaks down and he's just staring. It's a really long scene where he's staring blankly at the ceiling. At one point, I thought they're going to need to stick a paperclip into him to reboot. This is too much. And after all of this, Luke decides he needs some space and to be with a friend. And I'm with him here. I'd be scared to sleep in that open plan apartment with that psycho. He opens up to her a bit about how this experiment is making him unhappy and how he feels super isolated and alone. Now, Mel. Oh, Mel. She says him sharing this is giving her the ick because it seems like he's sulking. I just have no words. She lacks empathy. She's lizard person. She is lizard person. Finally, we get a little bit of turbulence for Gia and Scott, they absolutely sail through the Rapid Revelations and the photo ranking task. And, in Rapid Revelations, one thing we do learn about Gia is that she had a sugar daddy. And Scott, this dude is so fucking chill. He asks her if it was human, if it was a human sugar daddy. And then he says he doesn't give a shit. I kind of love this guy. In the ranking challenge, they both put each other first. She is so harsh. She is brutal with her rankings of the men. And Scott loves it. And I must confess that my sweet spot is men who are obsessed with their crazy over-the-top wives. So it all goes to shit once we get to the audition tapes. And Scott, God bless him, he's oblivious. He is so excited about this. I'm also very annoyed that we didn't get to see any of Gia's tape. I feel there must be some good stuff in there. But Gia has a meltdown based on some of his responses, where he says he's not sure about having kids. He says he likes money and freedom. I'm with you, Scott. This idiot said he'd be okay if the kid could look after themselves and if he doesn't have to pay school fees. So we saw earlier with these two on the wedding day how important this was to her and how her biggest fear was finding someone who doesn't accept her kid. So she definitely feels betrayed and lied to by Scott. Oh, and I like these two. This is cringe, but these two, they give very much a black cat, golden Labrador vibe. Now, this donut doesn't even remember saying any of these things. He tries his best to reassure her. I feel with these two, Gia has been bottling a lot of stuff up because just watching this video really opens up the floodgates. Like, this man, she tells us that he said to her that he has a spare room in his house that she can use as a makeup room. Honestly, sounds like a dream. But she has a fucking kid. Like, she can't put that kid in the garage. Later, this was hard. We see that Scott can't even remember her daughter's name. And he is laughing hysterically at this. I can't with these two. But it's good. It's good to see them face some challenges. Okay, then we have Beck and Danny. Now, I feel like I'm getting such deja vu with these two and rehashing this sex chemistry issue ad nauseum. We just keep having the same conversation again and again. So they play Rapid Revelations, and this whole situation is basically what already happened on their honeymoon with the honeymoon box. Yeah, I feel like these two got a lot harsher questions than the others did for Rapid Revelations. When Danny was asked about the things he asked for but didn't get, he says really, really high sexual chemistry. This guy's like a broken record. Although I did notice in this scene that me and him have the same gold Casio watch, so twins, Danny, love you. Beck looks devastated by this, and I get it. She's at a dead end, and things haven't progressed since the honeymoon. They're still kind of stuck on this sexual chemistry thing. She tries to get him to elaborate a bit more on what is missing, just to have some clarity. All he can say is that sexual chemistry is unexplainable, and I'm not buying this. I think he knows, but he won't say to her, and this feels like a cop-out. He also constantly keeps calling her his friend, and she doesn't want to be your friend, dude. Although he's not a lizard human, so he does seem put out by seeing her upset and he wants to try harder. So next, these two have the photo ranking task, and I'm pretty pissed off about this. So these two were the ones I was most interested in seeing this challenge with. So Beck puts him first and ranks the rest of the men. Then Danny says that he can only look at one woman at a time. Calling bullshit on that. And he throws the rest of the photos out of the window. He says that he wanted to be a naughty boy, and I've never felt so repulsed in my life. Oh, one final thing on Beck and Danny. They're being made to do some product placement, and they're drinking this Cocobella coconut water coffee drink in wine glasses. And it looks like an absolute monstrosity. And it's like separated. It was shocking. Oh, it looked rough. I think producers got to them and said, bitches, we'll send you to Fiji, but you have to choke down this poison. Oh lordy. Now we have Chris and Brooke. So these two already seem like they're not going to work, even before the audition tape challenge. They still haven't kissed, but they are having fun. They have banter, they're cleaning together. I have to flag that she is wearing Daisy Dukes to clean, and I can't relate to this. I wear Crocs and my dirtiest clothes to clean, and I try my best not to pass out from fumes from the pink stuff. So with his audition tape, we see all of his disgusting rhetoric around hating fig tan and needy and fat people, and Brooke is rightfully appalled. When they meet to debrief, this guy just starts laughing. He keeps trying to play it off as locker room talk, and that this is something he'd only say in a male environment, and he wouldn't say it in front of women. Men are terrifying. I didn't like this, and she says she's got the ick now. Personally, I'm convinced that she wasn't ever into him. I don't think she likes this guy. And Chris just looks like the world's saddest elf on the shelf. And it does seem like he's generally really into Brooke. I loved when Brooke called her sister for advice, and her sister, who seems like an actual normal person, tells her to run and not to waste her time. And that is great advice in this situation, unless you're someone who wants to be on television. So, before I move on to the last episode this week, I just wanted to say that there will naturally be couples that I spend more time talking about than others. In this episode, there are a few couples whose scenes are too boring for me to even want to discuss further. And those couples would be Stella and Philip, Rebecca and Steve, and Julia and Grayson. The only thing worth noting out of all of these couples is getting to watch Julia and Grayson doing some ecstatic dancing together in the morning. Now, I rewound and watched this scene upwards of 10 times. There's one part where she dangles her head down and it looks like Samara coming out of the well in the ring. It was, chilling. Okay, so we're on to the last episode and the last day of Revelations week. And I must say that I love this task, red flag, green flag. Chef's kiss. Before we get to that game, we get a few updates on the couples. So first, Gia and Scott have resolved everything after last night's argument. And I must admit, I do like their communication style. They just kind of get everything out there. Gia just lays it out and it is very direct. And yeah, everything looks good with them. However, these two, I must say, they are on the wrong show. I need to see them enter a race around the world or another team's competition show. Again, the producer asks him if he knows her daughter's name. He still doesn't know, still finds it hilarious. Jesus. Then we have Beck and Danny. They went out for dinner and they banged again. Now, throughout his confessionals, Danny looks like he's in a police interview. He says that he won't talk about shagging her because he shook hands with her dad. I find the patriarchy weird. Alyssa and David have also stopped leaving space for Jesus, and they've also boned. From the way they're both sharing it, it sounds like Alyssa was the one who made the first move and jumped him. Also, I have a bone to pick with the cast, the wedding photographer. They did David so dirty in this picture. The lighting is terrible. They need to fix that. So Stella and Philip, yeah, they're so boring to me. The only thing I ever have to say about them is that they're all over each other. So instead of talking about them, I'm going to do a coconut sidebar. So in one of their scenes, we get another appearance of Cocobella with them drinking the coconut water. Now, I'm scared I could be radicalized because their goddamn corporate manipulation is getting to me. I need to find a way to purchase this Cocobella water in the UK. I'm a big coconut water fan. Oh, and I also need to get coconut cream because I want to make dirty sodas like the ones that they have on Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Yeah, I want to try that. All right, cut to Mel and Luke, another disaster. So she is hurt after seeing Luke's family and friends criticize her on social media. So they say, I think it's his hot sisters say she has a resting bitch face and isn't genuine. Now, are they wrong? No. But do they need to share this on social media? Mel says that Luke makes her life hell. He says that she makes him anxious because of how she's treated him. These two need to leave. She does admit that she hurt him during the experiment, but feels it's unfair that he always plays the victim and avoids accountability. Now, I'm not a fan of Mel, and I have been pretty harsh on her, But this and the rest of the episode made me question for a second on whether Mel is getting fucked in the edit or whether she's just completely delusional. Because I don't know what he needs to take accountability for. Like, I don't see all these terrible things that Luke has done. So, yeah, I need some clarity there. All right, so on to a brand new task, red flag, green flag, where the men and women are split apart and have to say the red and green flags in their relationships. So my main question is, how much champagne were these women given? They are hammered and were acting insane. Like, they hate each other. It really reminded me of last year's Love Island with The Girl Defied. I mean, I didn't see any of this coming. Like, Brooke had zero fucks to give and went absolutely feral. Like, she's mean. I thought she was just being mean before because she was dealing with Chris, but like now I'm seeing her dole out on other people. So let's start with the men, because their session was generally more wholesome and calm than the ladies, apart from that demon, Steve. Let's start with Steven, my baby angel. His only red flag is that their senses of humour don't seem to align, and he's been holding back since the honeymoon. I love how much they love Steven, and they just really want him to be himself. They love his personality. And I also love that Steven has his own little, like, Sasha Fierce alter ego when he's being his wild, funny self called Steve-O. Now, Scott, I love Scott. At times, he seems like he's in one of those movies where a kid gets turned into an adult. Or if you've ever seen BoJack Horseman, there are these three kids who stack themselves on top of each other and pretend to be a businessman. Like, that's what I think Scott is. He doesn't have much to say. He doesn't really have any red flags apart from that he likes to shave his body and she likes a hairy chest. Now, our big shock with the men is Steve, who just completely dogs on Rebecca. It seems like there's nothing he likes about this woman. He complains about her constantly talking. And like, dude, just tune in occasionally. Like, if she's like me, then she just wants to make noise. He doesn't like her sexual innuendo humor, as he's very conservative. This dork. I feel like he wants some Handmaid's Tale style wife. And I like her humor. Apart from when she's doing those sexual innuendo stuff to her son. That was weird. But I was getting really pissed off when he was talking about her emotions being very high and very low. He's trying to make this woman sound psycho. I have so little time for Steve. All the younger guys look absolutely horrified by this, especially because they're presenting a completely different thing on the outside when they're in a group. Even the world's wisest himbo, Scott, shows more sense. Like, he doesn't get what this man is doing. With the men, we finish up with Luke. So Luke, bless him, he tries to say some positive things about Mel. It does sound like he has a gun to his head. I get it, it's hard. Then he has a complete meltdown about how he's been finding this so exhausting and isolating. He gets so much support from the other man, and I think he really needed to get this validation. I also love Danny having, like, such a huge crush on Luke. And I'll be honest, they have more chemistry than him and Beck. Speaking of Beck, it's her turn to do red flags, green flags. So she says that their communication's second to none. She mentions that she wakes him up at 1 a.m. if she's worried about something, and then they talk about it. So I saw Reddit this. This is psychological warfare. If someone interrupts my sleep, then I would be doing roundhouse kicks to get them out of bed. So her red flags are the issues she's already expressed about sexual chemistry, and she worries that he feels shortchanged. Then that little monster Gia says that Danny does give that vibe a bit. Like, she can't help herself. When it's Gia's turn, she also gives some boring green flags. For her red flag, she brings up the kid stuff she saw in his audition tape and the stuff about him forgetting her daughter's name. Now, Beck is plastered by now. All of these women have been chugging champagne, and Beck calls him an airhead and says that his horrific earring is a red flag. Now, I must defend Scott, because I've seen a lot worse earrings on the men on this show. This season alone. His isn't that bad. Becca then makes a speech about how much she loves the group, even though there's people she can't stand. So Gia claps back at this, and then Mama Rebecca has to come in and bring it up. Oh, these two. Now, once we get to Brooke, like, I was listening, but all I could focus on is how much she looks like a young Meredith Marks from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City in this episode, especially with that blazer. And that's the kind of TV shows I need to be made. I don't need to see young Sheldon. I don't need to see young Stewie. I've just heard about that this past week. Young Meredith Marks, that I would watch. So Brooke reveals everything about his fatphobic audition video comments, and these women are ready to go to war. Rachel is so, I've never seen her this angry. She is so incensed by his comments. And I love that Rebecca, she just isn't phased at all. She is not shocked because he seemed off to her already. So Brooke says she wants him to be grown and she didn't come here to train a boy. Now, after Brooke's turn, this is when things really start to go off the rails. So Brooke, she first goes in on Stella. Now, I've made it clear how boring I find Philip and Stella, but Stella shares some pretty dull green flags and then she says she has no red flags. Now, Brooke is just fully heckling her during this. She asks if Stella is wearing the Chanel watch. She calls bullshit and no flags, and Gia's like right there piping in behind her, backing her up. All the women are really shocked by Brooke's behavior, and so am I. I didn't see this coming. Like, she just seems so nice compared to Chris that I did not see this like Two-Face reveal happen. It was like the Two-Face reveal at the end of The Dark Knight. Brooke is ready to take them all down. She then turns her attention onto Alyssa when she's trying to support Stella and Philip. And Brooke, no, she doesn't stop there. She continues her tirade on Alyssa. Now, they're all kind of going in on Alyssa and saying she's theatrical. And I agree. I think she does seem a little bit like a theatre school or drama club student. I think she'd be like the one leading the massage train. I remember in university, the drama students were always doing a massage train. But I don't think she's as calculated as Brooke is making out. Gia's also doing her thing where she pushes on whatever they had sex. Alyssa basically explodes and says that they did. And Brooke is really going in, saying that they're a fake showmance. Now, maybe I'm crazy, but I don't believe that they're fake. I do not believe that Alyssa and David are fake. I think there's something very genuine between them. I really felt for Alyssa in this moment, and she looked on the verge of bursting into tears. It was rough, and I'm quite interested to see if everyone still shares these thoughts in the commitment ceremonies when they're a lot more sober. So we finish up with Mel, who says that there's no green flags with Luke. She claims he's made her life a living hell because she doesn't have feelings for him. And she uploads a lot of stuff. Footage not found. We haven't been seeing any of this on camera. Rebecca's quite skeptical and can't imagine Luke doing that. Mel gets a lot of backup and support from Gia and Brooke. But yeah, we see a lot more of the big divide between the women here. There's a lot of talk of girls. But Stella says that the situation is 50-50 and there's two sides to every story. And I still stand by that Stella and Luke are going to hook up. Now, Stella's comments kick everything off. Mel is doing a lot of crying and she confronts Stella on not being supportive. Now, Brooke, through all of this, she hates Stella's guts. Like, where is this coming from? I'd love to see some backstory on this. I was genuinely concerned for Brooke during this. I was worried. She kept rolling her eyes and I was worried she would roll her eyes so hard she'd get retinal detachment. Oh, Brooke. So we end the episode with Stella apologizing to Mel and explaining that she was trying to hold space for both Luke and Mel. I can't with this whole space thing. Like, maybe I'm not deep enough into the field of self-help, but I've heard this multiple times already in this show. And, like, is this all coming from the Wicked Press tour? Or is this something that people say? Oh, with that takes us to the end of week 2. So a little update on next week. I will be posting my week 3 recap on Monday and then week 4 on Friday. Then moving forward, once I'm caught up, I'll just be posting these once a week on a Friday after the Thursday episode of MAFS. Before I finish, I have a couple of recommendations of some additional things I've been loving this week. So first up is Project Hail Mary. I love this book and I love the film. 5 stars, no notes. Go see this in the cinema. It needs to be seen in the cinema. It looks incredible. My second recommendation is the second season of Last One Laughing UK. That's just started on Amazon Prime. So if you haven't seen this, basically Jimmy Carr is Jigsaw and he locks a bunch of comedians in a house and they're not allowed to laugh. But they're all trying to make each other's laugh and the last person standing wins. Like, if you're having a shitty day, just put the show on. It's hilarious. It'll brighten your mood. So hopefully you guys like this episode. Thank you so much for listening. And if you liked what you heard here, please subscribe for future MAFS episodes, artist discographies, and other pop culture deep dives. You can also find me on Instagram at PopMonsterPod. And you can find this podcast on both Apple Music and Spotify as Pop Monster. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps new people find the podcast. And please DM me on Instagram if you have any ideas for things you'd like me to cover in future episodes. Again, thank you guys so much and have a wonderful rest of your day.